Hi, my name is Ashish, and in this video we will see how to configure continuous delivery with Azure pipelines in Azure DevOps. In this video we will learn about the release management features available in Azure pipelines that will automate the deployment of applications. These features help development and operation teams integrate with Azure DevOps server to configure and automate complex deployments of their automated builds to target stages more easily. Development teams can also model their release processes and track approval, sign-offs, and visualize their release status. So to complete this lab, we would have the Azure account, Azure subscription, in which we will create our resources, and Azure DevOps portal as well. So let me just first of all go to the Azure portal to create some of my resources on which I will do deployment. This is my Azure portal, and in here, first of all, I will exit out of this. I will create a resource, and I will type in SQL here to create SQL database. Here it is. I'm going to click on create. And it will come up in few seconds here. I will enter the details here. I'm going to click on create new. Just see the lab RG. You can name it anything. Or you can mention same as it would be on. Here I'm going to mention it as the name of my project in Azure DevOps. You can do it anything. And then the database. In here you can also add parts unlimited as the name of your database, and in the server you don't have an existing server in which I'm going to create a new server. Server name would be parts unlimited. Alright, after entering the details, the server name, server admin login, password, I would hit OK here. OK, want to have the elastic pool. Now I'm going to change the size of the database here. I've selected it to be basic. Alright, let me check what it goes when it working. Alright, my database is provisioning. Let's give it a couple of minutes and I'll pause the video, come back after it is done. Till the time it's doing it, I'm gonna create another resource. I'm gonna click on create a resource here. Type in web. Go for the web app. Click on create. Resource group. I'm going to select the same resource group in which we created our SQL. Now the web app name would be test Azure web -QA. It will be code. Runtime stack would be ASP.NET. You can do it, test it for anything. For this lab, I'm doing it for this. Operating system Windows. Create. So there are now two deployments running, and one for the SQL, one for the web app. So now I'm going to create one more web application, and that will be for the production environment. So I have one database. I've created a one web app for QA stage, and I'm going to create a new web app for the production stage. I'll pause and come back after creating it. All right. Second one. So deployment succeeded for SQL, and for the QA web app, production is going on. I've named it test web app -prod, and my other one is test web app -QA. So now I will create a continuous release to the QA stage. Okay, so there would be multiple stages in my release pipeline. So let me just go to my DevOps portal and take it from there. Here I am on my DevOps portal, and under the pipelines, under my Parts Unlimited project, under pipelines, I go to my releases. And if you would see this Parts Unlimited E2E, you can delete this existing pipeline. Okay, so there are no pipelines here now. So I'm going to create a new pipeline, a new release pipeline. So there are many starting templates to choose from, or you can even begin with an empty process template. In this case, we'll select the Azure App Service Deployment template. So we are doing the deployment on one of the Azure App Services. I'm going to click on Apply. So I'm going to rename it to QA, because one would be for QA, one would be for prod. Stage name is this. And okay. And I am going to rename this to if it allows me to do pull. So after renaming it to this, the first thing to define is exactly what should be deployed, right? So click add in the artifacts here, add an artifact. So click add in the artifact section to specify the artifact to deploy. So this would be an artifact which would be deployed onto my web application. So there are many types of artifacts, but this one will be pretty simple. So a project built from the Parts Unlimited E2E build pipeline that already exists in this team project. So when I created this project, there was already some features defined. So it would be my source, and that would be this build artifact. The default version would be latest, source alias name would be this. I'm going to click on add. So this is an artifact which would be, this is a build artifact which would be deployed as part of this pipeline. Okay. So now that now that the artifact has been defined, it's time to configure the deployment to QA. So there are stages. So I added, so this is the pipeline, and this is the artifact that would be deployed. But at which stage I want to deploy it? So remember I created two web apps, one for the QA, one for the prod. So in here, I'm configuring the deployment to QA. So now if you will click on this one job, one task in the QA stage. So this is the task. So now I'm going to select the Azure subscription, my Azure subscription here, which is this pay as you go. I'm going to click on authorize. I'm going to type in the username and password. I'll click on next. All right. Now we'll follow the workflow to authorize access like I did. And it says, what is the app type? My app type is web app on Windows, right? It says, what is the name of your web app service? So after entering these details and authorizing it, it will show me two web apps that exist in my subscription, right? And the web app that I'm selecting is QA. All right. I'm going to go to the pipeline tab here. And I'm going to click on triggers. Here it is. So this is the continuous deployment trigger. This is the trigger button that to define what triggers will invoke this deployment. So I'm going to click on trigger. So I'm going to enable the trigger will create every time a new build is available. I'm going to enable it. And I'm going to add this. And if you want to add a branch filter that points to, so add a build branch filter that points at the build pipeline's default branch. This will kick off the deployment when the build completes. The build pipeline's default branch here. I'm going to click on this one. Now configuring the Azure app service here. So now I'm going to go to my portal and I'm going to go to my resource group here. If you see this, I'm going to go to my resource group, which is this, in which I have both the web apps. So now we'll click our SQL database. Where is my SQL database? This is my SQL server, right? I click on this. Make sure you click the database you created and not the server. So this is my SQL database here. It is there, perfect. And this is the server name. I am on this database. And this is my show database connection strings. Click on here. So this will provide us with the list of connection strings based on the platform. So copy the edu.net here. Click on copy. So the reason I'm copying it so that I can configure the new website to use it, right? So I'm going to click on here, click on copy, I'm going to close it. Done, wonderful. Now I'm going to type it on the notepad. Here it is. Perfect. I have it on my notepad here. So I'm going to go to my resource group. If I cancel it, I'm back onto my resource group here. And I'm going to go to my QA web app. This is my QA web app. And as soon as this comes up, I'm going to go under settings and click on configuration. On this blade, we can configure the settings for the app, such as connection strings, right? So if you would see here, it says new connection string. Click on it. So I'm going to locate the connection string here. Change the value to SQL. Azure name would be, you can type in default connection string, and you can paste it here, which you copied here, and in here you see this your password. You'll need to locate your username and your password sections and replace them with the actual SQL credentials entered earlier. Be sure to type is set to SQL Azure and click OK. So I'm gonna, if you would see here, so if I go back and you say server, this, catalog, security ID, your password in the braces. I'm gonna change it, ID, I'm gonna C, I'm gonna paste it here, and I'm gonna select it SQL Azure. I'm gonna click on OK, and I'm gonna click on save. Perfect. So you will have to repeat this step for the production as well, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for QA. For this, I'm gonna do it again for the later as well. Let's do it here. So if I go to my this, and if I go to my prod web app, and if I go to the configuration, alright, I did it for prod as well. Okay, now I'm going to go to my Azure Devops here. This is my Azure Devops. I'm gonna go to repos. I'm gonna go in files. I'm gonna do it in the new tab, just not to change it. I am onto my new tab. So now I am on to my source files of this project. I am here. You see this file here. So this is the file that defines the journal layout of the site and is a good place to make a change that will be easily visible after the deployment. So I'm going to click on edit, and if you would see the logo part here, if I do it like this, and if I search for logo. Here it is, parts unlimited logo. I'm going to add v2. I'm going to click on commit. On the master branch, I'm going to click on commit. And now if you will see your pipeline here, and if you would go to the pipeline here it is, updated layout, and if you would click on the face, it is running. So every single change that you will made will have the changes, run the project. It would, do the build, then the NuGet, build solution, test the assemblies, then copy the files, then publish the artifacts. So if you would see here, it is the test task defined here as well. So after it's complete, I'm going to show you the tasks that have been defined here. So for the build until completion, so this is the build going on, and if you would see the release, you would see the release also going in. And see, so now if I go to my releases, after that it is done or almost done, you see the release here, and you would see the deployment. You click on it, QA, see, so this is now doing the deployment. So build was done, see, so it has downloaded the artifact. Now it is deploy Azure App Service, and because you have defined what application, what app to deploy on, so it will deploy it on the QA web app, because you defined that in the task, if you remember. So now it is deploying successfully added resource annotation inside on this. You see the web app name, it's defined QA, because this is the QA stage that you have defined. So this is called the adding a multiple stages to a release pipeline. So in build pipeline, the one we ran after changing the code, it made a build, it made a build of the code, did the testing, published an artifact, right? And so now and the release pipeline was actually released or did the deployment on the resource. And now if you would go onto this released pipeline, and you would see the stage here, the QA is succeeded. You click on it, and pipeline, see, QA is succeeded, continuous deployment, it is. And if you would click on redeploy, all of the process will be done again. And now if you want to see what it did, and if you want to go here, and if this is your QA website, and if you would browse it, click here, it did not come up. So this is another thing we have to troubleshoot, because deployment was succeeded, the code did not deploy successfully onto this. runtime error I'm running, but this is how you will deploy it. So now if you would see the app service, this is the app service plan in which it was deployed. So now if you want to uh, create a release to the production stage now, and I'll show you. So this is the slot here that we did. Now as release pipeline get more sophisticated, it becomes important to define gates to ensure quality throughout the release pipeline. Since the next stage we are deploying to is production, we'll need to be sure to include both automated quality gates as well as a manual approval gate. So return to the release pipeline browser tab and click on clone in the QA stage. So if you, this is here, and if you would add a stage here or deploy multiple or release one stages. If I go here, let me find a way. Edit the pipeline, click on add, click on news. This one, click on clone in the QA stage. You would see that the new stage is added after the current one, which is what we want. We want it from QA to deploy it to prod. However, before we can consider the QA deployment successful, we'll need to define a post-deployment condition. So now click the post-deployment conditions button on the QA stage here. This one. This is the post-deployment condition. Click on here and enable the gates option. Define gates to evaluate after the deployment. Like you see that we were getting a runtime error and we don't want this to publish on production. So to define a gate stage, I'm going to do this. Click on enabled. And there are several kinds of gates available that can automatically test virtually anything. You need to make sure a deployment is in good shape. These could be the return values of Azure functions or REST APIs, or it can be queries for Azure alerts. We can also configure how long the platform should delay before evaluating the gates for the first time. In this case, change that to 0 because we're doing it in lab. So it will test them immediately after deployment. Then click add query work items. Add query work items. So now select the query for shared queries. It would be critical bugs, evaluation option. The time between would be 5 minutes. Timeout, which time between reevaluation, time after which gates fail. 24 hours is 1 day. We can now turn on our focus to the production taste. All right. So we have all to find all this. Looks good to me. Now we can go here. Click on here. I can change it to prod. Here I'm going to click on my, so you see this pre-deployment condition. So enable the pre-deployment approvals here. So I'm going to enable the and add yourself as an approver. So manual only approvals. I'm going to click on OK. So it would be me because I only have one user in this project. The user requesting a reason should not approve it because I'm going to approve it, right? Here, now click on this one job, one task. Same, and in here I'm going to go for prod, right? That's how it works. Click on save. All right. Now I am going to go to my repo here. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my repo, files. I'm going to change it again. So give me a minute. I'll be back. Okay. This is where I'm going to make a change. I'm going to change it to 3. I'm going to click on commit. All right. I'm going to again go to my pipelines. Here the build will run again. This one. This is the pipeline that I ran seconds ago. I'm going to click on its jobs. You see that this will going to run again. I'm going to pause it and come back. It is done. I'm going to go to here. See, you click on. It is now processing gates. Remember the conditions that we defined. It's going to fail on one of the query gate items. All right. So at the processing gates, it failed. So eventually this has to happen on the QA. While it deployed out successfully, one of the quality gates failed. This will need to be resolved for the stage to be approved. So if I go to my pipelines, see, evaluating gates, right click on it, query work items, it says it failed. Now if you would click on boards, queries, open it up in the new tab, go to here, click on all here, under it go to the critical bugs that you defined. It says state approved, declines in order noticed, please investigate immediately. So you would check the site to confirm the bug was fixed, but we'll skip ahead here and mark it done. So I go here, state approved, and I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go to done, and I'm gonna go click on save. Alright, now if you will go to the release pipeline here and see this, slowly you will see that it has been succeeded. So now it is processing gates, and if you would, I've marked it done, right? So I'm gonna go to critical queries here, and I'm gonna click on here. So it is evaluating gates here. So it depends upon the time. It may take up to 5 minutes for Azure DevOps to check the query again. Once it does, the bugs will be cleared and the release will be approved. We can then click approve to approve deployment to production. So we'll have to wait here and pause it. Okay, now see here, it says succeeded after try. So it says pending approval on the prod. Remember, I gave myself in the approval list. Approval pending. As per the approval setting on this stage, you cannot approve or reject deployments to stage prod because you created this release or deployment yourself. So if you cancel this, pending approval, I'm going to go to the view approval tab. Okay, I'm going to approve it. So I am myself the approval. That is why it is not coming for me to approve, but you know the process now, because if I click on approve, the deployment would be deployed on the production slot as well. This is how it goes, and it will take a moment for it to run. And let's say you want to do it in the production slots, you want to go for the deployment slots as well. So like this is the QA, you would see that these are the deployment slots. And if you want to configure it on the slot level as well, like you want to, let's say you want to, which are parallel targets for application deployment. So let's say from QA, you want it to deploy to a slot on the staging slot of the production website. So this is the production slot that it's running. So if I'll click on add a slot here for this and enter a name. So let's say I'm going to go for the staging slot, clone setting from, let's say I'm going to do it from the QA. This will validate the setting. So it will have a slot on my production slide as well, on my QA as well, and I can add a slot. And then I can define in my pipeline that from QA or from within the QA, it should deploy to my staging slot and not on my production slot. So you will do here. So let's say it is creating a new slot here. So if you would come to your task here, let's say you come here, and if you would see this is succeeded, I'm going to cancel it for now. I'm going to say cancel. Okay. So it is not deployed here. So let's say you want to go to your pipeline here, and if you would edit this pipeline, and you see task, deploy Azure app service, you see it says deploy to slot, right? So if you will click on here, it will say, okay, what is the resource group name? My resource group name is this, in which I have my web apps. And where do you want to deploy it? I want to deploy it to my staging slot. See, and now I see that because the slot has been done. I'm going to say, okay, deploy it here. And after clicking on it, so as and when the code gets deployed, it will deploy to my staging slot, and I can go to my website, and as soon as it is deployed on staging slot, I can click on swap here. So staging will become production and the production slot will become staging. That's how it goes. So this is why source would be this slot and target would be this. So any code that has been deployed onto my staging slot of the web app would be swapped from the staging to production slot, and everything would run same. So this is how, quite a big session I know, but you got to know how things work when you deploy onto the multi-stage deployment. And from you can add few more stages as well. I added QA from to production. You can add dev, regression, performance testing, and whatever stages you want to. So I hope this was useful to you. I see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.